There are definite camps in the bead weaving world, people who are pro-knot and people who are very anti-knot and adding and ending your thread. I actually go both ways. I sometimes knot, sometimes I don't knot. It doesn't really matter to me. I see the reasons for doing both ways. Sometimes you've got a really loosey-goosey stitch. Herringbone would be a good example. It's a little bit more difficult to weave back and forth in different directions and not accidentally take away that gentle V shape of a herringbone stitch. So herringbone is an example of a stitch that I actually do go ahead and tie knots in. Something like peyote stitch. Peyote stitch is perfect for weaving back and forth in your beads, and there's really not any reason to add a knot unless it makes you nervous. If it makes you nervous and you don't trust that the weaving back and forth with your thread and then just clipping it off is going to be enough to hold it, then go ahead and knot. Don't let anybody tell you that you're doing something wrong. It's totally fine. Now, I generally use a half hitch knot when I am using a knot, but there are some times that you want something that's a little more sturdy than a half hitch knot. Times when maybe your thread is particularly loose and you just want to really make sure that that knot's going to hold. Sometimes the kind of material that you're using for as your thread can make a difference. For instance, Fireline, which tends to be the thing that I use the most, can be a little slippery in a knot, believe it or not. All of us who have accidentally created a big tangle, you know, and then had to spend 35 minutes sitting there picking the knot out, find it hard to believe that Fireline can actually slip out of a knot, but it can happen. And so sometimes people will tell you that you need to use a surgeon's knot when you're using Fireline in particular. I still generally use a half hitch knot unless I'm in a spot where it's especially loose. And then I want to make sure that I tighten it on up and hold those threads together. And then I go to a surgeon's knot. So let me show you how to make a surgeon's knot. It's almost exactly like a half hitch knot with one extra little loop. So here I just created a piece of peyote stitch. So the only reason I used peyote stitch was because it was quick and fast for me to stitch up here for my demo piece. And what I'm going to do, which I normally wouldn't do, is I'm going to actually create this knot on the outside edge of this piece of bead weaving so that you can see it a little bit better. Normally I would be creating this knot right on in the center here somewhere because I'm wanting to hide the knot inside. That's why I wouldn't put the knot on the outside edge here, is because I wouldn't want it to show. But all the steps are the same, whether you're doing it on the outside or whether you're doing it on the inside. So just like a half hitch knot, you're just going to find a thread intersection that's nearby and hook your needle underneath the thread. You're going to pull it down, your working thread, so that you've got a little bit of a loop. Again, the smaller your loop is, the less likely it is to prematurely knot on you. You're going to go ahead and pass your working thread through the loop, just the way you would with a half hitch knot. Here, at this point, basically what we've done is a half hitch knot. And so if we shut this down, continue tightening and close it down on itself, then that will be a half hitch knot. But what I want to actually do here is make a surgeon's knot. So the only difference is that now, going in the same direction that I did the first time, I'm going to go through that loop a second time. And then now I've got two loops around here, and now as I tighten down, and again I want to do it nice and slowly so that if I see any premature knotting going on, meaning that it's knotting out here instead of right down next to the beads, I can stop and fix it before it gets to be too late. So now as I tighten down, there we go, it tightened right down to the beads. And that extra loop of thread makes a huge difference in how secure that knot is. When I do a half hitch knot, let me do this one more time for you real quick. When I do a half hitch knot, I tell you that it does not matter whether you go front to back or back to front through the loop. That's still true of the surgeon's knot. The thing is that you need to be consistent about how you go through that loop for the second pass. So if you went front to back for the first time, then you need to go front to back for the second time, okay? And this is even more likely to prematurely knot on you, so be really slow and careful as you tighten that on down into the space. So that's a way to make a surgeon's knot that it will be even more secure than a half hitch knot. Little tricks that make bead weaving a lot more easy. Happy beading!